I never thought my own mother would erase me from Mother's Day. Not because I was absent, not because I forgot, but because she said my job didn't fit the family image. So instead of arguing, I disappeared, quietly. Mother's Day had always been complicated in our family, but never cruel, at least not until this year. I found out I wasn't invited through a photo, a group picture posted online, my mom in the center, smiling, surrounded by my siblings, flowers in hand, brunch table perfectly set. The caption read, "So grateful for my children today." All of them, except me. At first, I assumed it was a mistake. Maybe plans were made last minute. Maybe the message didn't send. So I called her. She didn't sound surprised to hear my voice. That's what hurt the most. She hesitated, then said it plainly. "You know, with your job, it just didn't feel appropriate to have you there." No anger, no apology, just quiet judgment. I asked what she meant. She sighed, like I was the one being difficult. "People talk. Your work doesn't look good in family photos. I didn't want questions." That was the moment something in me went still. Not angry, not broken, just clear. For years I had shown up. Holidays, emergencies, late-night calls. I sent gifts, paid bills, took responsibility when others disappeared. But one label, one job title, and suddenly I didn't belong. So I didn't argue. I didn't explain myself. I didn't ask to be included. I said, "I understand." And when the call ended, I made a decision. If I was invisible to them anyway, I would disappear on my own terms, quietly. The next morning, I didn't show up for breakfast. Not because I was angry, not because I wanted attention. I just didn't. I stayed in my room, quietly packing small essentials. Laptop, some clothes, a few personal things. I didn't leave a note. I didn't say goodbye. Just vanished slowly from their daily routine. When my mother called, I didn't pick up. Text messages went unanswered. The house that had always been my stage suddenly felt alien. By evening, whispers started. "Where is she? She's always around. Why isn't she answering?" I could almost hear the panic growing, though they tried to hide it. The family who had erased me from Mother's Day now felt my absence. For years, I had been there silently, unnoticed. Now, I was there silently, but absent. The first shock hit them when they realized my room was empty. Not messy, not unkempt, just gone. I had packed lightly, but efficiently. My mother tried calling again, voice tense this time. I still didn't answer. By that night, they started questioning their decisions. For the first time, they felt the weight of exclusion, without me saying a single word. I was teaching them a lesson. Respect isn't demanded. Recognition isn't owed. But absence speaks volumes, quietly. By the third day of my quiet disappearance, the house had shifted in ways I had predicted. The chatter at breakfast was softer. The laughter felt forced. My absence was suddenly loud. My mother's eyes kept darting to my empty room. My siblings whispered in corners, glancing my way whenever my name came up. Even my father, who usually ignored the small details, paused mid-task and frowned. The realization was sinking in. I had been more than just a presence. I had been a part of the rhythm of the household, someone whose contributions kept the small machinery of family life running smoothly. Suddenly, my exclusion from Mother's Day didn't seem so trivial to them. They started noticing the little things I had done for years. The clean dishes stacked in the morning, the laundry quietly folded, the bills paid on time without complaint. All those things they had overlooked suddenly became visible in my absence. My mother, frustrated and anxious, called me multiple times that evening. I didn't answer. Each unanswered call became a lesson in humility, a quiet reminder that taking someone for granted has consequences. By nighttime, tension filled the house like a thick fog. I could sense their unease even from my quiet room. No confrontation, no shouting, just presence replaced by absence, and it was enough to make them reflect. The silence was my weapon. The quiet disappearance was my message. Respect isn't demanded loudly. It is felt. And when it's ignored, even the smallest absence can be deafening.
By the fourth day, the atmosphere in the house had completely changed. Small gestures became frantic attempts to notice me, to reach me, to make me visible again. My mother left my favorite coffee mug on the counter, carefully placed like a peace offering. My siblings tried to casually mention my name in conversation, only to freeze when they realized how tense the room felt. Even my father, usually stoic and distant, wandered past my empty room multiple times, glancing inside with a mix of curiosity and guilt. Finally, my mother sent a text. "Please, we just want to talk." I didn't reply. That evening, my father tried knocking on my door. "Are you coming out for dinner?" he asked hesitantly. I stayed silent. The tension built like a pressure cooker. For the first time, my family felt the consequences of their actions. Excluding me from Mother's Day wasn't just a photo omission anymore. It had created a ripple of discomfort, anxiety, and self-reflection. They didn't know it yet, but this quiet disappearance wasn't just about being left out. It was a subtle, calculated way to make them recognize my presence, my efforts, and my worth. The lesson was already sinking in. And the longer I remained quietly absent, the louder the message became.
By the fifth day, my quiet absence had begun to take its toll. The house, usually filled with laughter and chatter, was tense. Every footstep, every glance, carried the weight of unspoken guilt. My mother tried subtle approaches first, leaving notes, sending texts, and making small gestures. "I hope you're okay. We miss you." I read them, but I didn't respond. My siblings grew impatient. One asked aloud, "Do you think she's really gone for good?" Another whispered, "Maybe we went too far." Even my father, usually composed, seemed restless. He moved slower, checked the calendar repeatedly, and avoided family photos. The absence I created had become a mirror. They could see the impact of ignoring me. That evening, the tension reached a peak during dinner. My mother hesitated at the doorway, holding a plate of food. "Would you like to join us?" she asked carefully. I stayed seated silently, letting my calm but firm presence speak volumes. No confrontation, no yelling, just a quiet, unwavering reminder that my presence mattered. By the end of the day, I realized they were finally starting to understand. The lesson was sinking in. Recognition isn't demanded, it's earned. Respect isn't given, it's felt. And when it's ignored, even the quietest disappearance can teach the loudest lesson. By the sixth day, the quiet tension had reached a breaking point. My family could no longer ignore the absence they had caused. My mother approached me directly this time. Her voice was soft, almost trembling. I didn't realize how much we've been taking you for granted. I'm sorry." I didn't respond immediately. I let her words hang in the air. They were meaningful, but I wanted them to feel the weight of all the days I had been invisible. My siblings followed, each offering their own apologies. Some were awkward, some hesitant, but all genuine. Even my father, usually silent in moments of emotion, spoke. "We've been wrong. You've always been there, quietly supporting us, and we didn't see it. I'm sorry." The room felt different. The tension hadn't disappeared completely, but acknowledgement had entered the air. They were beginning to understand the impact of exclusion, not just on me, but on the family dynamic itself. I smiled slightly, quietly. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about recognition, respect, and a lesson they would not forget. The subtle disappearance had worked. My absence had spoken louder than any argument or confrontation ever could. By the seventh day, the house began to feel different. Small changes were noticeable everywhere. Breakfast was no longer rushed. My siblings asked for my opinions before making plans. My mother paused before posting family photos, remembering my absence. Even my father started including me in conversations he usually skipped. I watched quietly, observing each small gesture.
No confrontations, no lectures, just subtle acknowledgement, and it was enough. They started asking for my help, not because they had to, but because they genuinely wanted it. For the first time, they seemed aware of all the little ways I had supported them over the years. I still maintained my distance, keeping the quiet power of my disappearance intact. Every gesture, every inclusion, every acknowledgement was now earned, not given out of habit or obligation. It was satisfying in a quiet, understated way. The lesson was sinking in without me saying a single word. By the end of the week, my presence was appreciated more than ever. They realized that respect isn't demanded, it's felt. Recognition isn't forced, it's acknowledged. And absence, when used wisely, can teach more than words ever could.
By the 8th day, the weight of my absence had settled into every corner of the house. Even small routines that had gone unnoticed before now felt incomplete without me. My mother, usually bustling with energy, moved slower, her eyes constantly scanning for me. She asked my siblings repeatedly about my whereabouts, each answer tinged with guilt. The cozy chaos of daily life suddenly felt hollow. My absence had created a quiet emptiness that no amount of activity could fill. I remained calm, silent, and deliberate. I wasn't seeking attention. I wasn't plotting vengeance. I was simply letting them feel the impact of their exclusion, letting my quiet disappearance speak louder than any words could. That evening, my mother attempted a more direct approach. She stood at the doorway of my room, hesitated, then said softly, We didn't mean to hurt you. Please, come back. We need you here." I watched her carefully. Every word she spoke revealed the weight of realization, the guilt they had carried unknowingly. My siblings approached too, offering apologies, explanations, and promises to be more mindful. Some of their voices quivered, some were awkward, but sincerity shone through. Even my father, who usually expressed emotion sparingly, spoke plainly. "We have underestimated your presence for too long. You are important to us, and we've been blind. We are sorry." I finally spoke, quietly, without anger. "I've always been here, quietly supporting everyone. Now you felt what it's like when I'm not." The room went silent. The lesson had been absorbed. The quiet disappearance had done its work. I smiled slightly. This wasn't revenge in the traditional sense. It was a measured, deliberate act that demanded respect, acknowledgement, and appreciation. And now they were starting to understand, fully. By the 9th day, my absence had done its work. The family had felt the void, reflected on their behavior, and started trying to repair the damage. I returned quietly, not with drama or complaints, but with calm composure. The moment I walked into the living room, the air shifted. My mother paused mid-task, her eyes wide. My siblings froze, then quickly tried to hide their nervous smiles. Even my father straightened, a rare sign of acknowledgement. They had learned the lesson. My presence was not to be taken for granted. Every good morning, every casual laugh, every glance now carried new meaning. They didn't shower me with apologies immediately. Instead, they acted differently, thoughtfully, consciously. They included me in plans, asked for my opinions, and treated my contributions with newfound respect. I didn't need to say much. The quiet power of my disappearance had spoken for me. The absence had taught them humility, reflection, and respect. And my return reinforced that lesson. Acknowledgement is earned, not demanded. By evening, there was laughter, conversation, and a sense of warmth, but now it was genuine. They had realized the value I had quietly brought to the family for years. The subtle revenge, the quiet lesson, had succeeded without a single confrontation or harsh word. By the 10th day, the family had transformed in subtle but meaningful ways. The quiet absence I had maintained was no longer needed to teach them a lesson. They had learned it. At breakfast, my mother smiled genuinely as she handed me my coffee. "Good morning," she said softly, and it felt sincere. My siblings laughed together, including me in stories and jokes that I had often been left out of. Even my father, reserved as ever, made an effort to ask my opinion on simple decisions. I watched them carefully. No over-the-top gestures, no exaggerated apologies, just real acknowledgement. The respect I had earned through my silence and measured absence had stuck. I reflected on the quiet power of the act. Sometimes, revenge isn't loud. It isn't about anger or confrontation. It's about creating a space where others realize the value of your presence. It's about letting absence speak louder than words ever could. That Mother's Day, which began with exclusion, ended in reflection, humility, and a permanent shift in the family dynamic. I had shown them that taking someone for granted has consequences, without ever raising my voice or causing drama. As I sipped my coffee and smiled quietly, I knew one thing. Respect is never given freely, it is earned. And the quietest revenge often leaves the deepest impact.